"Excuse me, ma'am, you're not on the guest list," barked Officer Granger, posture stiff, eyes already scanning past Cheryl Ellis as if she were invisible. His tone cut through the buzz of laughter and jazz like a blade. "Cheryl Ellis," she replied, her voice controlled but firm. "Class of '96. Her name didn't slow him. The crowd by the entrance turned with curious glances, some of them recognizing her face, most pretending not to. She wore a plain navy blue dress, hair pulled back, no designer clutch, no sparkling heels, just quiet presence. But that wasn't enough to belong here. A hush crept over the room. Someone near the wine bar whispered, "She doesn't look like she belongs." Another chuckled low. Probably tried to sneak in. Phones hovered, eyes narrowed. No one stepped forward to help her. That was the loudest part. Cheryl didn't flinch. She tilted her head, holding Granger's gaze. "You might want to double-check that list, or ask who sent the invite." Before he could answer, her purse slipped, accidentally or not, and her phone hit the floor. On the screen, R. Ellis, arrival confirmed. One man saw it, whispered, "Wait, what?" She wasn't here to sit quietly, and she wasn't alone. If you believe no one should be judged by their appearance, especially by those in power, hit the like button now and subscribe. Type "justice" in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. This story delivers the most powerful, instant karma you'll see all year. The ending will leave you breathless. You think you know someone, until they remind you what your last name used to mean in this town. Years ago, Cheryl Ellis stood in the same school auditorium, invisible among the popular kids and honor roll plaques. Her father, the school janitor, had picked her up in a rusted truck that backfired every time it idled. Some students used to laugh, others just stared. Cheryl never forgot either. Born in Birmingham and raised on the east side of Montgomery, Cheryl learned early that dignity was not something handed to you. It was something you wore, even when no one acknowledged it. Her shoes often had holes. Her lunch was sometimes just crackers, and the library was the only place that felt neutral. She wasn't voted anything at all in her yearbook, but she watched, she listened, and she never unlearned how the world misjudges quiet black girls. Decades later, Cheryl is no longer the child of a janitor, but the architect of one of the largest minority-owned infrastructure firms in the country. She builds water systems across continents, sits on panels that decide disaster relief funding, operates under silent subsidiaries. Most people don't know her face, but they know her work. That's how she likes it. Her father never saw her name in lights, but she made sure it was engraved, on buildings, on charters, and now, on the deed to the very hall hosting tonight's reunion. She wears his memory like armor, and his last words, "Don't force them to see you, let the moment come," echo every time she walks into a room like this. Still, in this room, she's not seen. They glance at her curls, her plain dress, the fact that she stands alone. Some assume she's with catering. Others avoid eye contact altogether. When Officer Granger asked, "And who are you here with?" she didn't blink. "You'll see him soon enough." Her voice didn't hold a threat. It held prophecy. Granger and Tillman have escorted plenty like her out the side. Doors. Anyone who didn't look like old money or new whiteness. They laugh with Amanda Foster, who shows up late, no credentials, all teeth. She gets a hug. Cheryl gets suspicion. But the game's different this time. And the rules about to change. Have you ever felt misjudged before people even knew who you were? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. You think you can just walk in here? Officer Tillman's words dripped with sarcasm as he stepped forward, eyes narrowing on Cheryl. His tone wasn't official. It was personal, steeped in a contempt he didn't bother to hide. "People like you always think the rules don't apply," he muttered, low enough to be threatening, loud enough for bystanders to hear. He didn't mean her attire. He meant her skin, her silence, her audacity to exist here. Granger joined him, extending a hand like a crossing guard stopping. "Traffic. Unless you're on this list, you're leaving." Without hesitation, he reached out and grabbed Cheryl's elbow. It wasn't aggressive, but it was forceful enough to establish control. like she was a child being corrected in front of a classroom. The energy in the room shifted. Something ancient and ugly had just resurfaced in full view. Cheryl didn't jerk away. Instead, she glanced down at his hand, then looked directly into his eyes. Her stare wasn't angry. It was surgical. Then, without a word, she tapped the side of her lapel twice. A tiny red light blinked alive near her collarbone. Recording had begun. Several guests had stopped mid-conversation. Phones were rising now. Someone whispered. He just grabbed her. Another started filming. No one knew what this was yet, but it didn't feel right. She's making a scene, someone whispered from the drink table. No, did you see that? Another shot back. For the first time that night, the room, divided, without shouting, without movement, just glances and screams catching everything. Granger leaned in, his fingers still pressing against Cheryl's arm. If you don't cooperate, I'll report this as trespassing, he hissed. The warning wasn't a rule. It was a threat, soaked in bias. Near the wall, Mr. Brooks shifted uneasily. He recognized Cheryl. He remembered her father. He took half, a step forward, then stopped. His silence didn't protect her. It only protected himself. Cheryl didn't flinch. She spoke clearly, her voice a shade louder than before. You might want to check who owns the property before you escalate. Granger's grip loosened. His face didn't. The crowd didn't breathe. The next move wouldn't be hers. If someone grabbed you just because of how you looked, what would you do? Stand firm or walk away? Drop your answer in the comments and hit like and subscribe. Granger's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. That's enough. You've ignored too many instructions. He pointed squarely toward the doors. This is your last chance to walk out on your own. But Cheryl didn't move. She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Granger stepped closer. Too close now. His presence trying to bulldoze hers. The room fell into an unnatural silence. Conversations halted mid-word. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Napkins dangled in limp hands. No one intervened. Yet. But every gaze was now locked on them. I'm not leaving, Cheryl said, voice calm and razor-sharp. I haven't done anything wrong. Her tone wasn't loud, but the tension in the room swelled as if the air itself was holding its breath. She reached slowly into her coat, pocket, and retrieved a gold-trimmed invitation. She held it up, arm steady, as if handing him truth itself. But Granger didn't take it. Instead, with the back of his hand, he slapped the invitation clean out of hers. The paper cracked against the floor like a detonated secret. The room gasped. Fake, someone muttered near the drink station. Looks printed. No, wait, look, at the logo, another whispered. That's real. The crowd began to fracture, some in doubt, some in guilt. Mr. Brooks clenched his fists. The man who once watched Cheryl sit alone at lunch now watched her sit alone again. He took a half, stepped forward, then hesitated, then stepped back. He wouldn't be the one to help her. Not yet. She's just trying to stay calm, someone whispered. Still, she's not handling it right, another countered. No one seemed sure what right even meant anymore. Cheryl bent down, in slow motion, picked up the invitation, and returned to the center of the room. She sat, not in protest, in command. She didn't say a word, but her silence thundered through the walls. From the bar, a woman spoke, just loud enough to cut the tension. She doesn't look shaken. Then quieter. Maybe she's not the one who's in the wrong. Cheryl tapped her wedding ring twice against a nearby glass table. The gesture seemed meaningless until a tech executive across the room froze. He'd seen that signal before, in classified briefings, in boardrooms where billion-dollar consequences unfolded. Do not engage with her, Granger barked, but his voice cracked like a shell. She's not a guest. The desperation in his tone was impossible to miss now. Her phone buzzed silently on the table. Cheryl glanced at the message. He's 3 minutes away. Don't move. She flipped the phone face down and stared straight ahead. Acting like she owns the place, Amanda sneered from across the room, sipping her wine. The irony dripped louder than her voice. She's making this about race, a man grumbled behind a plate of crab cakes. This is supposed to be a reunion, another snapped. The crowd had grown restless, yet more unsure of itself than ever. Cheryl lifted the invitation again, quietly. This says I belong here, but you're not even looking at it. Granger stepped into her personal space again, his chest puffed. Tillman moved too, now standing to her right. They boxed her in, blocking both sides. I've got this on video, a quiet voice said from the buffet. Cheryl nodded, her gaze unshaken. Thank you. Granger turned to the venue staff. Get security to clear her out, he barked, but no one moved. Even the waiters watched like statues. A catering staff member brushed past Cheryl, intentionally bumping her shoulder. With the tray, she didn't even blink. But someone nearby muttered, she didn't even move. She's stronger than all of them. And just like that, the silence turned into something else entirely. What would you do if someone slapped your hand in front of a crowd and tried to block you physically? Speak up or wait in silence? Comment below. Officer Granger's patience snapped like dry wood. He stepped forward and shoved Cheryl hard in the shoulder, a move that wasn't protocol. It was punishment. Enough with the drama, he spat, loud enough for every classmate to hear. You don't belong in here. His voice dripped with finality, but his hands spoke louder. The crowd gasped. Dozens of phones went up at once. A few jaws dropped. This was no longer just an awkward misunderstanding. It was violence, public and purposeful. Tillman tried to take the spotlight back. She's disturbing the peace. She refused multiple orders to leave. His voice shook. For the first time, he sounded unsure of himself. The lie floated in the air like smoke, but no one was buying it now. Cheryl didn't yell, didn't defend herself. She simply said, all I've ever asked for is fairness. The silence after that sentence was heavier than any scream. She rose slowly, walking toward the exit. For a second, the officers believed she had given up. Her hand brushed her purse, and the room inhaled as one. Then she stopped, turned, and returned to her seat. Calm. Still. Her silence became its own kind of protest. Granger lost it. He lunged and slapped her wrist, knocking the invitation from her hand. Don't ignore me, he shouted. A scream erupted. Someone dropped their drink. The room had seen enough. That's assault! Someone yelled. You can't hit her! The spell broke. The room turned. Cheryl stared up at him, unwavering. You just made a mistake. A public one. From opposite corners, two suited men stepped forward. One tapped a badge beneath his blazer. The other started live streaming to a federal channel. The air changed. Eyes widened. This wasn't just a reunion anymore. It was the start of a reckoning. If someone slapped your hand and shoved you in front of your old classmates, how would you respond? Stay calm or unleash the truth? Tell us below. Cheryl rose slowly. The murmur in the room dulled as her posture stiffened. Not out of fear, but finality. I've tolerated enough, she said. Her tone didn't rise, but something in it split the room wide open. It was calm, yes, but also surgical. A velvet knife cutting through years of buried indignity. Granger, red-faced and unraveling, jabbed a finger in her direction. You caused this mess, he snapped. He stepped toward her again, chest squared, breathing hard. His fists curled and his jaw twitched. He didn't touch her this time, but he didn't have to. The violence in him was visible now. For the first time, the guests began to shift, not away from Cheryl, but away from the officers. Chairs scraped back. Hands slipped off wine glasses. The eyes that once watched Cheryl suspiciously now tracked Granger's every move like a man unraveling on stage. His badge no longer shielded him, it spotlighted him. Cheryl reached into her coat and handed her phone to one of the suited men, standing nearby. No words were spoken, no commands given. Just a single glance. He nodded and walked off toward the hallway, already activating something on the screen with a double tap. Across the room, a young man seated near the bar unfolded a napkin handed to him moments earlier. He read the inked message, tucked it in his coat, and walked out the door. He didn't look back. Whatever this was, it was no longer just a standoff. It was a sequence. Tillman stepped forward, voice cracking as he tried to hold the reins. "Who are you talking to?" he demanded. "What are you hiding?" He looked to the crowd, then back at Cheryl. His attempt at authority had become a cry for control. Cheryl didn't flinch. She didn't answer. But the suited men, silent up to this point, stepped closer. One adjusted his stance slightly between Cheryl and the officers. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The air changed. A woman seated 2 tables away slid her chair closer to Cheryl. "Want me to film the rest?" she asked quietly, holding up her phone. Cheryl nodded once, her eyes never leaving Granger's, our face. The phone clicked into position. "This was never about rules," Cheryl said, her voice low but clear. "It's about how you treat people when you think they have no power." Her words struck harder than any outburst. Granger blinked. He didn't have a comeback, but he had one last mistake to make. "She wouldn't be acting like this if she were one of us," he muttered, just loud enough to be picked up. 3 phones caught it. One of them live-streamed. The crowd didn't react verbally, but every face changed. The room held still. You could hear nothing but air and consequence. Cheryl let the silence stretch, then calmly spoke. "You just wrote your resignation letter in front of witnesses." Granger scoffed, then snapped. He lunged forward, reaching for Cheryl's wrist to silence her physically again. His body lurched with the arrogance of someone who believed he still had power. But before he could touch her, one of the suited men stepped between them and shoved Granger back with a firm forearm across the chest. Granger stumbled slightly, not from force, but from disbelief. "Touch her again," the man said, his voice cold, controlled, and clear, "and you'll be in federal custody before midnight." Gasps spread through the crowd like fire leaping across dry grass. People began filming openly now. Amanda's mouth hung open. Even Tillman's hand twitched toward his belt, then stopped. He knew. Everyone did. The mask was off, and whatever authority they once wielded had just been revoked by presence alone. This was no longer about a guest list. This was something else. What would you do if someone lunged at you out of fear of your power? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe if this moment hit you hard. No one spoke. No one sipped. No one moved. The sound of Granger being pushed back still echoed in people's ribs like a distant thunderclap. You could hear ice settling in untouched glasses. Breathless, tension sat heavy over the room. One suited man stepped forward, silently placing himself between Cheryl and the officers. His hand hovered near his jacket. Not threatening, just ready. Not security. Something higher. Cheryl rose, with grace, adjusted her coat, took 2 deliberate steps. She placed her phone face up on the center table. The screen flickered. Live, 89,000 viewers. Granger, visibly rattled, barked, "What are you doing now?" But the weight in his voice was fear. Cheryl didn't blink. "You'll understand in seconds," she whispered. And somehow, that scared him more than shouting ever could. She didn't flinch when he hit her. That signal. Did you see how fast those men moved? The whispers curled through the air like smoke. This time, they weren't mocking. They were reverent, nervous, afraid, not of what they saw, but of what they didn't see coming. The suited man returned and stepped in front of Cheryl protectively. He carried a small black case, which he handed to her with both hands. Cheryl opened it without drama. Inside sat a government ID and a sleek digital device. She lifted it, tapped once. The projection screen at the front of the reunion flickered. To life. Footage played. Officer Granger, captured months earlier, shoving a black teenager against a patrol car with unnecessary force. His face, his badge number, his words, his smirk. The room gasped as the video zoomed in. There was no debate, no ambiguity, just truth, caught on record. 2 more individuals entered. Their pace was steady, measured. Their presence didn't ask permission. Their jackets bore a silver emblem. Federal Ethics Oversight Division. No one needed an introduction. Effective. Immediately, said one of the agents. This event and these officers fall under federal review. He turned to Cheryl. Director Ellis, we're ready when you are. The room combusted, not in sound, but in recognition. Ellis? A man in the front row whispered, clutching his program. As in, Ellis Corporation? She owns this venue, another said under their breath. Mouths fell open. Cheryl stepped forward. I'm the founder of Ellis Civic Integrity Group. I've spent the past year auditing municipal misconduct in multiple cities, including this one. She paused. I didn't come here for applause. I came for evidence, Granger stammered, blinking like the lights had gotten too bright. No one said she was. You never said. I gave you the chance, Cheryl interrupted. I let your actions speak first. The federal agent approached Tillman. Your body cam footage is now part of a federal criminal inquiry. He reached forward and unclipped Tillman's badge from his chest. The click echoed louder than any slap. Cheryl didn't gloat. She stepped back, silent, letting the consequences speak. 2 more agents walked in and handed her sealed files. Every incident, every recording, every false report, documented, backed, time-stamped. She turned to the crowd. I was told I didn't belong in a place I paid for. Some of you laughed, some stayed silent, but now you'll remember. Clapping started in the back, then the middle. Mr. Brooks stood, tears in his eyes. No one clapped for the officers. You judged me not by what I did, but by what I looked like, Cheryl said. You chose comfort over character. But justice doesn't need permission. It needs patience. Granger took a step back, his badge gone, his command shattered. Tillman tried to slink behind a row of chairs. He made it halfway to the bar before a federal agent slammed him back against the wall. Don't move, the man said. Amanda dropped her wine. The lead agent faced Granger. You're fired, effective immediately, no appeal. He tore the badge from Granger's uniform like it was nothing. You'll both report to the Oversight Committee by 9 a.m. tomorrow, the agent continued. Bring legal counsel. Tillman trembled. Granger said nothing. His voice had evaporated. This wasn't personal, Granger muttered. Cheryl walked past him without breaking stride. It became personal, she said, the moment you put your hands on me. Her shoulder brushed his lightly, not in confrontation, but to show how far below her he now stood. She turned to the guests. To those who watched and stayed silent, thank you. You gave me exactly what I needed. Then she looked directly at the nearest camera, and to those who think silence protects you, watch what it exposes instead. She found the woman in the silver dress, the one who had recorded. A single nod passed between them. Nothing performative, just mutual recognition of truth. The slideshow resumed in the background. Faces from the past, crowns, awards. Then the frame froze. Most likely to change the world, Cheryl Ellis. The image held. The room stayed silent. This wasn't just a reveal. It was a reckoning. If you think Officer Granger got what he deserved, or not enough, drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this chapter hit you deep, like and subscribe right now, because silent power always comes with a receipt. As Cheryl stepped toward the exit, the weight of the night softened behind her. A young woman caught up, eyes wide, phone still clutched in her hand. "I've never seen someone win without shouting," she breathed. Cheryl smiled, faint but knowing. "Silence holds more weight when you've earned it," she replied. By sunrise, the footage had crossed 1 million views. No edits, no filters. Just raw justice, replayed in slow motion. Comments poured in like a tide turning overnight. "This is how you carry power." She didn't break down. She broke them open. The internet didn't just react, it remembered. Cheryl posted only one sentence to her organization's page. "Power isn't in the noise, it's in what echoes after." No hashtags, no fanfare. It was heard louder than a press conference. Weeks later, at a national leadership panel, someone asked what she'd say to those who still go unnoticed. "If they don't see you, stay still," she answered. "Not to disappear." But so the ground shakes when you finally move. Months passed. Cheryl returned to that same venue, this time for a scholarship gala hosted by her own foundation. The new security guard opened the door with a firm nod. "Welcome, Ms. Ellis," he said. Same building, same steps. But now, the air bowed differently. In the back row of a civil conduct seminar, a camera scanned past an ex-officer in plain clothes. Granger, silent, still, present. Sometimes redemption starts with the decision to listen. Back in her office, Cheryl opened a file marked Phase 2, National Oversight, School Boards, City Contracts, Law Enforcement Grants. Her legacy wasn't punishment. It was precision. She closed the folder and whispered, "Legacy isn't what they remember you for. It's what they never forget again." If Cheryl inspired you to move in silence, but with purpose, hit like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs it today. In the comments, tell us, should people like Granger be forgiven? Or is this just the start of justice?